if you don't like something, if you land up at something which you don't like, don't just stay stagnant in it. Try to move ahead.
So hello everyone, my name is Aishman Nag and on behalf of Grow Junction today, I am here with another podcast with our esteemed guest, thank you sir, Deepkumar, for being with us.
My
And
pleasure, man. Happy. Good morning.
good morning sir, good morning. And sir, before we start on with our segment today, why don't you give our audience a brief introduction about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hey, hi everyone. I'm Deep. I work as a senior product manager with Amazon. Predominantly, I look after the address creation experience for customers worldwide. So customers, while shopping on Amazon, if they would want to go ahead and get the products delivered to them, they may have to enter an address before they go ahead and carry out the checkout or the purchase experience. So that's something that I and my team look after for customers or at a worldwide scale. Um, Prior to joining Amazon, I have been a PM for more than 10 years across varieties of industries, retail, HR software, podcast servicing, etc. I also have been a Java developer before doing my MBA. So that's a quick brief about me. Based out of Bangalore, love to spend time with my daughter whenever time permits. Yeah.
Great, great. Thank you so much. It's a lovely introduction. So, sir, how many years has it been, since you have been a working professional?
It's been it's been long time. It's almost about to be 15 years for me. Uh, Luckily, I've been in the PM space. I cherish working in the product management space, addressing concerns of the customers and moving ahead. So that's been my core forte or the area in which I worked throughout my career.
Right, right. So, great, sir. Uh, so, moving on to our next question, that is that after your B school or maybe during your B school itself, what were the visions or goals that you had set for yourself, which led you to this particular stage?
Yeah, that's a nice one. And in fact, I passed out in 2010. I completed my B school in 2010, and that was like immediately in the aftermath of the subprime crisis, which happened in 2008-9. So the placements and everything was fairly downhill. And what actually happened is at that particular point of time, most of the my classmates were actually looking at alternative options to, or like fairly generic options uh, uh, to grow their careers. So people were looking at like specialized career choices, moving to, let's say, folks in finance would want to go to IBDs or investment banking or things on those lines. I think most of those plans were not getting materialized because of the subprime crisis, and uh, the folks was trying to kind of hedge their bets, have a much rounded general kind of a flavor to that CV during the B school time frame, right? So that's something that even was applicable to me. I was inclined towards consulting roles, as well as I was inclined towards taking up like senior management roles in the tech space. But I mean, honestly, at that point of time in 2010 and all, the field called product management and all were not fairly known in the market. So yeah, what would a product manager do, what's a product, and things of those lines. Even the IT industry was well established, the product setup was still getting started at that point of time. I actually landed up in a role for product management in Wipro. Now Wipro being an IT services provider, ITES company, they had a small internal product which was used in an outsourcing setup, and that's where I got a chance initially. I was lucky enough to get a chance initially to work in the PM space right from 2010 onwards, and that's how the journey started. It wasn't something that I was looking forward to. I wanted to build a career in uh, either in consulting or in IT management and larger organizations. Um, and I was offered this role. At least at that point of time, when I was like recently graduated, completed my B school, I was looking forward to a large, interesting opportunity. That was the only thing that was in mind. I think money and other things. Uh, Yeah, there are considerations. Huh? Someone is giving 10 lakhs, someone is giving 12 lakhs. Oh, there's a difference of 2 lakhs. And also, some of these considerations were there. But roughly, what we also knew is like the initial part of the year is about defining your career, building your career, and all. So for me to, when I picked up this role, the focus was that yeah, I want to do something in product management, in tech management space, and something interesting which helps me grow. And luckily, when I was told about the role, when I was told about like what I will be doing or what contribution I'll be making, I was like really excited. I mean, there were a lot of interesting opportunities over there. uh, Working in cross-functional setup, engineering team, end users, customer support, a lot of varieties of teams, trying to make sure that we are taking the product ahead. And it was a wonderful experience for me. So that's how actually I landed up in the product management space, and the career started from there. And once I got a hang of it, I just kept continuing on the similar lines.
I think it's a lovely story, sir. But sir, the thing is that when you went into the B school, you had certain vision, certain targets, right? But then you came into the product management sector. So, what were the visions before, and like how, or like let's say, how did product management sector, how did it, mold your thoughts,
Yeah.
like?
Yeah, so let me take a few steps back, more further than what I just explained. So when I joined the B school, right, I loved solving puzzles. I loved solving problems. I loved mathematics a lot, and I've always been. I mean, studies is something which I never shied away from. That's been something which had been in me. And I think learning the management part of it, the whole focus at that point of time was to understand how businesses work. I mean, that's all. Like understand businesses work, grow the horizon, bigger perspective, and things on those lines. At that point of time, I knew that let's say I was a software developer before I joined the B school, so I knew that at least uh, I will gain a perspective which is much bigger than a software developer had. Right. So that was the thought process at that point of time, and I knew that the learnings imparted will help me grow as I take up more bigger responsibilities in whichever domain, whichever industries were there. So honestly, personally, I didn't have any specific industry level target saying, okay, no, I am doing B school because I want to get into a BCG or a Bain or McKinsey. I mean, honestly, at that point of time, I didn't even know the names of those companies. But as you get into the groove of it, you learn the subjects, you learn about different opportunities, you identify the inclination over there. So B school opens the doors in that way. It gives you a perspective of what careers everyone might have in different work streams, right? It will give you exposure that if you are into finance, what kind of role you might get. If you are into marketing, what kind of roles you might get, what opportunities you might get, right? If you're in consulting, what kind of opportunities you might get. If you are in product, I mean, not product management, but in the IT in the IT management space, what kind of opportunities you might get. So those kind of roles were being opened as we started learning about the subjects, understanding different opportunities which are coming on campus, either through internship or final placements. Then one could make an honest choice. So at least at my mind, even with subprime crisis and everything, uh, I couldn't pinpoint on where exactly I wanted to go through because I like quite a few subjects, but I knew that few places where I didn't want to go through. Like for example, I'm not a sales guy, so I didn't want to go into any role which involved sales. I didn't want to go into roles which involved, let's say, HR side of it, or like HR management or people management at that particular point of time. I wanted to like excel more in from an individual contribution capacity and grow from that side, right? So that was the thought process, and build on my domain understanding. So marketing was okay. Consulting was my dream choice. Like even if I would have gone into like we had different days, day zero, day one, day two kind of forms. Even if I had gone into a day two consulting firm, it would have been nice. In fact, I joined. I took up an offer immediately after campus for a firm which was in consulting, but it didn't come on campus. Uh, and the role was more operational consulting into shipping industry and logistics and all. But then I started to realize that IT. I had been working in the IT setup and things on those lines. So I think IT management was an area in which I wanted to go ahead, and that's where I looked at different roles and got this role at Wipro. So that was the overall thought process. Before joining MBA, it was more about broadening the understanding, education, learning, and then once we got into the groove of it, I was able to see that what I liked, what kind of things interested me, and try to shape that path. One advice that I would give to the students, at least on this particular point, when they are trying to pick and choose their careers, if you don't like something, if you land up at something which you don't like, don't just stay stagnant in it. Try to move ahead. I mean, it would have been very easy for me to say, okay, let's stay in consulting for 2 years and then apply to my dream consulting companies and then possibly see what works or what doesn't work. But let's say if you're not enjoying your day in the initial part of it, there's no point in just dragging it for the sake of dragging.
Okay. So, sir, like by this, do you mean that, for example, if someone is starting his or her career in the consulting field, and then after 2 3 years or maybe 4 years, he or she is not, able to find her correct place, or maybe he or she is losing that particular interest. So, are you suggesting that, like, instead of just staying there and being stagnant, they should completely change the sector? Like, for example,
Um,
into
yeah, the good clarification that you asked here. I think there are different things which people could do. One is clarify about the role with the company, saying, yeah, this is a role. Some aspects I'm liking, some aspects I'm not liking, or whatever it is. Right. Try to see how you could shape it up, which is further aligned to what you would want to do. Right. If that doesn't work, try to see that in the same firm, if you are able to explore some other roles building on your expertise. Because like in my case,
mm,
thinking looking back here, if I had to be in consulting, could I have taken a different role in the same company which would have helped, which might have been aligned to my interests, but also helped me build my career in consulting?
mm,
Honestly, in the firm in which I was, there weren't it wasn't something which was aligned, but you might find, like, it's very easy for you to find a similar elite teams where you might get a chance. Like, for example, today lot of the students passing out from these schools will be joining startups, right?
right.
You might be placed in whatever roles. You might be placed in sales, you might be placed in customer support, business development, whatever it is. You might find that, oh no, I mean, business customer support is not my area of forte. Possibly marketing is my area of concern, right?
Mm,
Now, in firms like startups and all, you will get an opportunity to kind of work with those folks who are working marketing as well.
yeah,
It's very interesting. Oh, it's very fine. It's okay for you, or in fact, it's like appreciated of you if you would want to kind of step up and then say, no, I want to also contribute in marketing.
mm,
So people might not give you the offer right away, but you might want to get your hands on, do one or two assignments for the folks over there,
mm,
try to what do you say, provide or uh, build your credentials in that space,
mhm,
right? Make something working. And once the firm start to realize, yeah, I mean, this guy is, or this person is doing really well
mhm,
in a given role, then she or he might be accepted right away into the role which they would want, right? So that's the second opportunity which you would want to do, which is to look at opportunities within the team.
mhm,
And still, if things don't work out, you find that, oh no, the thing that I want to do is completely diagonal to what, let's say, my career aspirations are.
mhm,
You might be getting some option. I mean, you might be getting some pros. For example, the money might be good, or the brand might be good, or it might be in a place, I mean, giving you good work-life balance, or same city in which you are staying, or things in those lines. But at least initial part of the career, when you're passing out, you're in your 20s, early 20s, late 20s, and all, this is a time to stretch your boundaries.
mm,
Go for something which you might like, which helps you build your career, which you would want to do, let's say, 10 hours, 12 hours a day. That's the time where you would want to invest a uh, lot of yourself in, to not just work for the company, but also learn and grow yourself.
mm.
And that's what you should look forward to in the opportunity.
I think that's a great advice, sir, because while we are young, I think that's the time to hustle. So I think
Absolutely.
that's a great advice. But sir, the fact is that, as you have mentioned, that nowadays, after passing out from B school, many students will be joining certain startups or unicorns. But as we know that being a startup, being at a blooming stage of a company's, stage, I would say that things are pretty dynamic. Okay, like things are ever evolving. So maybe shifting that job role that you just said, that if you are not finding your best foot over there, then move ahead and explore. So in startup, maybe it is like a little easier to pursue, because in startup, everyone has to do every bit of everything. But sir, like, what would happen like if this kind of a thing one needs to do in a well-established MNC, because there are already
Yeah.
like rigid systems. So how to like change that?
Yeah. No, that's a fair point, and it's not easy per se to go ahead and do things. But I'll give you a couple of examples where it has worked throughout in my professional life as well. I think one thing that students or employees need to keep in mind is generally if the organizations are right, the people with whom you are approaching are the correct one. They
Right.
will have they will have their ears open. They will have the doors open
Hmm.
for anyone who is interested to contribute without expectations. So it's like
Right. Okay.
I'm just building an example over here. Let's say you are working in a startup which is developing some software or some product, some operations thing which is being solved. If you would want to go ahead and uh, uh, just building on the example, you were there in business development or customer support, but you want to build your career in marketing, right?
Hmm.
What you might want to do is you might want to find an opportunity to interact with the folks, interact with the guy the person who might be working in marketing.
Hmm.
Could be in brand management or social media handling or whatever those activities, right?
Hmm.
Try to understand what she or he is doing, what kind of opportunities or roles are there. If there is something, obviously, if it's marketing is something that you would want to do, you might have some thoughts in mind saying, okay, I want to pitch to the customer something new story or something like that, right? And that helps you develop that conversation further. And there are different opportunities. The office space is now opening up. Work from home might be a little difficult to establish these kind of connects, but let's say office space is opening up, you might catch that person possibly on lunch or during tea, and then explore about the ideas that you might have, saying, okay, why don't we try this, why don't we do this? And more often than not, the answer that might be given by that person, the marketing manager or whoever it is, will be, yeah, we haven't tried something like this, we have a hands full, but I'm okay if you would want to take a shot at it, right?
Yeah.
So they may give you the responsibility saying, boss, if you would want to try something, go ahead and do it. We are not stopping you from it.
Hmm.
Give a proposal, give an idea, what happens, what doesn't happen, and let's take it from there. So your original role is continuing whatever it was there, but you get an additional assignment which you could work on
Okay.
and which is of your interest, so you should be able to work on it much more easily, right? Go ahead and do it, go ahead and demonstrate it, show an output in a week or two to that person, develop further relationship, work on varieties of things, and then then let's say when the opportunity arises and startups are growing, right? So even from marketing perspective, then you can say, yeah, I like this work.
Hmm.
Rather, I would say, I would want to join your team. If not, I'm happy to partner in, divide some responsibilities, let that conversation happen. So the person with whom you have worked on, you've
Hmm.
given your contribution, the person has already validated what you are there in the same organization.
Right.
It's very easy for someone to kind of say, okay, this person is matching this role, what's the point of keeping in someone another role, and try to move ahead, right? So that's how the conversations, even in whether it is a startup or the established organization, the same way starts. I would say even in the established organization, it's even more easier because the work pressures that you might have on an individual are much less. So over there, the rules and everything are fairly defined. So let's say the marketing manager in the same example for an established firm might have 3 or 4 responsibilities. You might actually pick up one responsibility. The marketing manager will say, I have my yearly targets to do 2 3 things on this, right? You may say, okay, let me try doing this for a month or whatever, right? And one of them for a month, and then you contribute to that. People will be more than happy to accept you on the team. So that's the typical way in which you prove yourself in the new role, you prove yourself in the new team or the new project, and then you ask for a transition. That's a better way to approach it. I've seen this thing working for me in variety of different places. I was working in mortgage servicing industry. There was a QAE. So there was a QAE, basically quality assurance engineer, uh, who was working fairly well, doing nice testing on the reports that we were generating for the mortgage industry space. But her inclination was that she wanted to work as a UX designer. So she wanted to work on the front end pieces of it. Being a kind of a platform backend team, we don't have much of the UX work. but it's okay for someone to show that interest. She was able to identify, contribute on those things, and then when we had opportunity identified, we transitioned her from a q so think of it, from a QAE to a UX designer. Because of her interest, inclination, although there was not much formal degree, the career transition happened. So it's important for everyone for someone to show that inclination and then carry out a transition. People are happy to see, honestly, the leadership and the senior management are happy when employees actually stand up and then pro- proactively suggest that something is, they are able to contribute a bit more, right? Whether it is in the allied role or something else, which helps them realize their vision as well, uh, and take it ahead. Because if someone is happy,
Mm.
an employee is happy, the contribution is multifold.
I think that's a great advice, sir, because a lot of people, as you had mentioned before, that somehow they just don't like literally they don't open their mouth to ask questions or to keep their
Absolutely.
opinions forward, and that maybe that's why they just feel stagnant, and they become stagnant at at a certain point of their career. And that's a great piece of advice that all the viewers today we can learn from you today. So thank you so much for that, sir. Uh, Sir, moving to the next question, that is, when you joined the corporate sector, okay, at that point of time in those years, be it product management or be it consulting, which was a field of interest for you, they weren't that blooming at that point of time. Like in the past couple of years, let's say 3 to 4 years, I would consider. Suddenly, there is a huge spike in these two fields of management, I would say. So, sir, is there any like specific reason for this spike to happen this sudden, or like did you see it coming?
So I think some industries are growing well, some industries are stagnated. Honestly, in the last 2 to 3 years, there has been so many. COVID has caused completely different churn into the industries and varieties of opportunity. I mean, there are opportunities as well as there are like downsides to it as well. The world has started to move ahead, but there are both sides of the stories. Even from the market perspective, the external factors like the war which is between Russia and Ukraine, or even the global market side, there is bit of, it still hasn't settled yet, right? I mean, we don't even know like whether it's going up or down. Every week the direction changes overall.
Yeah.
uh, uh, so all the amidst all these dynamic changes and flexibilities, it's very easy for anyone to lose focus and then say, where exactly are we going? Am I in the right industry or not? Am I with the right firm or not? What will happen to the firm in the long run? Will my growth happen, not happen? I think all these are valid questions, but just sitting and thinking about it isn't going to give you the answer.
Right.
I think one thing that can help you get your answer is, are you learning? Are you growing? Are you enjoying? Those are the questions that you must ask yourself, that will give you, uh, which you have control on. Like if you're not learning, why are you not learning? You might ask that, okay, are you getting the right opportunities? Are you getting the right challenging problems? Are you getting the right support of the teams, peers, environment, whatever it is required, right? Are you growing in the sense like, are you getting bigger responsibilities over a period of time, more scope in work, challenging assignments, uh, all these questions, because all these questions you have a control on. These are dependent on you. It doesn't matter whether Russia Ukraine war is happening or not happening, but what happens in your job, what happens in your career is something which is assigned to you. People may want to ask questions on similar lines to yourself. Very few might be the companies or industries which might actually be like really badly impacted
Mm.
by these external forces, right?
Mm.
Which and for example, I mean, it could be as simple as um, there were a lot of ride sharing apps which started and were working really well before COVID, and COVID happened and suddenly everything stopped for them. So it's very unlikely that going forward something like that might happen, drastic might happen, where you might be working, excelling in your company, and then because of external factors, the company itself might shut down. There could be some other reasons, but till you are growing, you are learning, you are experiencing more challenging problems, I don't think you should be worried much, right? And you should be happy with the work that you are doing. You might want to think through, let's say we are working in marketing. You might want to say, okay, can I become a marketing a senior marketing head or whatever it is over the next 3 to 4 years, right? Or do you see yourself 10 years down the line being the head of marketing for your organization? Would you like that job or not? Let's say what your peers are doing, right? Similarly, uh, in case of sales or area managers, folks who are working on the ground, you might say, okay, I might have one area now. Let's say 3 5 years down the line, I might have 3 or 4 team members who might be handling a similar kind of area management job. I'm okay. Am I fine? Would I like to carry out that job 3 years, 5 years down the line? If yes, then you may excel in your current role automatically in you may not even wait for 3 to 5 years, right? In 2 to 3 years, if you're excelling, you're liking your role, you're contributing to it, you will see a much faster career progression than what, let's say, even your managers might have seen. So that's the thing that you might want to keep in mind. You should be learning, growing, enjoying your work. um, then it's a win-win scenario. I think money, even work, money would automatically compensate for itself over a period of time. um, Work-life balance, it's something for all individuals to find for themselves. I think it's not a people do ask these questions, why isn't my company defining work-life balance? It's for, I got this really interesting uh, piece of advice from one of the other senior folks who was discussing with it. It's for all individuals to define their own work-life balance. I mean, it's gone is a time where company will say this is right, this is not right.
Mm.
Typically, in the work which is there, they might define high-level boundaries or guidelines, but then it's for you to define how you would want to contribute in your work and define your own work-life balance as you move ahead, right? So those are some of the pointers which I would say that people might want to take if they find themselves in a tricky spot.
I think that's another great piece of advice, and a very clear picture, so that everybody can understand what is what and what is not. So, thank you so much for that piece of advice. So, moving on to the next question, that is, what are the prerequisites that are needed to, be a part of your domain?
You mean to say the product management domain, is it? Yeah. Okay. So I think that's also a very very beautiful question. Um, Typically, when I joined when I was starting my career in product management space, people had a mindset. I mean, there was a notion saying someone who is working on, let's say, a tech product needs to have, let's say, a computer science or an engineering degree. Um, might be should be willing to work with the engineers a lot, and then go ahead and build on the career as a product manager. I think today those kind of constraints are no longer valid. If the only thing which is required is, are you able to connect with the customers, understand the problem, and do anything and everything to make products successful? If you have that zeal, passion to go ahead uh, and enable customers through your product, right? Or give great experiences or solve customer problems through your product, then product management is the field for you. It doesn't matter whether you are a software engineer, or you are a QA person, or a UX person, or a customer support staff, or or a sales manager, or whomsoever. If till the point that you are able to understand the customers, translate their pain areas, concerns, product needs into product requirements, work with all different stakeholders to go ahead and deliver the product, or develop the product which addresses their needs, and then deliver it, and see the impact, right? Measure the impact of how the customer experience has been improved. uh, if you're able to do these things, then product management is the right career fitment for you. So one point answer over here is, there is no one size fit all kind of a scenario. Anyone can become a product manager till she or he has got that inclination to it. Some skills do help, like for example, you must be some skills are really important when it comes down to product management. Things like, okay, you should be able to work in a cross-functional setup, because as product managers we work with a lot of different teams:
Yes.
customers team, customer interaction team, business development team, sales team, support teams, marketing teams, you name it. I mean, UI UX engineering teams, anyway, from a day in day out basis, at least in the IT product management space, we definitely work with. So communication, collaboration, team management, uh, ability to work in cross-functional setup, these are like core attributes or skills that one may need. But honestly, to get into PM or excel in PM, there is not one major prerequisite saying you need to have XYZ degree, only then you can become a product manager. Nothing like that. At least today, in today's world, nothing like that exists.
Okay. I think again, sir, that is a lovely answer, so that people can understand that what actually it needs. More than those degrees, or more than the theoretical bookish knowledge. What actually fundamentals that are required to excel in this field. I
Yeah,
think that
yeah,
that's
yeah.
really helpful.
But having yeah, but having said that, I do not want to demean, let's say, the folks who might be learning some specifics, like folks who are passing out from B schools and all. They would have understood a lot of strategy related things, customer related things, marketing things. So those things are fairly important, right? I just don't want to restrict that knowledge cannot be only acquired in B school. That
Hmm.
knowledge can also be acquired by externally working or learning, or a lot of other things. So that's something to keep in mind. The assignments or problems you might be solving, like the four C's, four P's of or like the BCG framework and things on those lines, those do exist. So we
Yeah.
do apply them on regular basis when we define product strategies and things on those lines. Yeah.
I think, yeah, absolutely, sir. Absolutely agree to that. Sir, now coming back, not coming back, but actually going to a little, flashback, or I would say the history, to the time when you were about to enter your B school. Okay. So, sir, like we all know that in order to get into a good B school, a person needs one completely developed and a holistic profile, right? Like it's not just academics, but there are other things also, be it co-curricular, be it extracurricular. There are certain other things also which you need, which you can talk about during your GDPI rounds. So, sir, like in that particular case, like how was your experience, or how was your preparation for that?
Yeah, I don't think so. Some of the things might be valid, but world has moved ahead a lot from that time frame. So at least in my time, when I give cat in I gave cat in 2007 and got admitted in 2008. At that particular point of time, I was also doing the job. I was a software developer there. um, so one it's it's very easy for students who are there to
Mhm.
get really bogged down saying, oh, I want to apply for cat, or I want to apply for IIM. It's so big, it's so many things to be done. And one can get a little bit overwhelmed with it. Plus you might think, there might be students who might think, oh, my CV, I have not got great percentage during my graduation, or my school of graduation is not great, or whatever. I mean, those kind of negative thoughts might again further bog you down. It's important, but it's important for us to say, let the negative, so the facts are facts, we can't change it. Let's say if you don't have got you haven't got great marks during your graduation or 10th or 12th, it's okay. That's one part of it, but nothing can be done thinking about it, right? What can be done is to develop yourself, prepare for your prepare for the examination, or the things in front of you, and then work on it. Especially in my case, I had kind of like relatively average graduation marks and things on those lines. But one thing I was really excited about, and which I think has been my strength, is uh, I always like to learn something more. And I'm able to think the larger picture. I'm able to work on and understand, solve problems. So that's me. That was me like 15 years back. And I really cherish doing that. Even when I was working in the IT sector as a software developer, I love to see, okay, to solve a given uh, software problem which is this way, why are we solving it? what are the needs, what are the different aspects, how it could be done, and then go ahead and do it. It's not just, okay, someone has given you a task saying, okay, you need to write these 10 lines of code, and you just go ahead and write it down. It might take a little bit more time out of it as well, right? So it's important for us to understand what your strengths as a person are, and then build on top of it. Second thing, like I said, there's so many things. There's written examination with multiple different sections. There's GDP. I mean, there is a group discussions, personal interviews, so many different things. Don't get tackle everything step by step. Let's say you have to give an examination. What you need to do in your examination? Where do you stand? Like for me, I cracked it on my third attempt. The last two attempts, I was getting really good. I mean, the scores weren't so bad, but I was not cracking the verbal section. So I knew very clearly that verbal is an area where I need to focus on. So we had three sections: verbal, DI, and the maths one, the quant one. During my examination in 2007, when I gave it, I spent like half of my time, I think slightly more than half of my time in verbal, looking at most of the questions, investing more time, and then trying to tackle the other two, because I knew this was an area where I needed a lot more focus on, in comparison to, let's say, some of the other students. And then I was able to tackle it and then move ahead. Right? So you identify your strengths and weaknesses, you define your strategy to succeed in each of them, move it one by one, and then grow ahead. Similarly, in case of GDPIs and all, in group discussions and all, you need to prepare some areas which you think are you're going to be specific to you, right? You can bring some specific insights around it, and then continue to those discussions. There's no point in just asking some random questions or doing a +1 to the discussion which are happening. That generally doesn't fly. It's important to bring out your own perspective, develop your knowledge, and do the groundwork associated to it.
I think again that was a really helpful information that we could get, like strategizing the entire approach. So I think that is something we can understand from this. So thank you so much, sir. So sir, as we are almost at the end of our segment today. So the last question that we have on behalf of Grow Junction is that like uh, there are multiple success stories on your way, but there must have been certain hurdles, or as say certain shortcomings, I would call them, which helped you in the longer run. So can you please like throw some light on that?
Yeah, I think throughout, as you build your career, I mean, it's not always a bed of roses that you find just like smoothly driving fairly through. Everyone encounters hurdles or challenges throughout your way. Could be personal, could be professional, could be academic, whatever it is. And for me as well, there have been no dearth of those. I think it's important for for all of us to kind of uh, understand and imbibe it, and remove the emotional aspects from the facts, and then take a rational call. I think over a period of time, that's something which has helped. Like in the example that I gave about cat, I cracked it on the third attempt. The first and the second attempt, I was so close. I knew like my percentiles were really good, but one section I'd done poorly, and it was just not going ahead.
Mhm.
It would have been it would have been so easy for me to say, oh, forget about cat, like let me just go ahead and apply for MS or do whatever, and then just
Mhm.
move ahead. Uh, or even the career that I had as a software engineer, that was I like programming. I love programming. Even today, I do some things at my side in terms of coding or things on those lines, right? So it's easy for me to go ahead and solve for it. Take an alternate approach to it. But then once those emotions of disappointment or failure go away,
Mhm.
it's important to also think through like what could be done to solve it, right? You would be able to identify the strategy to crack it. There isn't anything when it comes down to like cracking of an examination or getting a job into a company or a role that any individual cannot do. It's all about identifying your path to their success. The common mistake with students do is they kind of say that, okay, this is the defined path, I need to take this path if I need to reach there. But in your case, the path might be slightly different. Like for me, to go ahead and crack at that particular point of time, I knew I had to give more time in verbal ability section
Right.
for me to crack that section, because my success rate when I gave my answers in that section wasn't great, which means I had to try even harder, solve a lot more problems for me to get that score which can help me go ahead and crack it. So for each one of us, when we're faced with hurdles or challenges or failures, it's important to identify what's your path of success, how can you reach there, leave out emotions from the practical aspects, right? And take calls on those practical things that can help move ahead.
I think again, sir, lovely piece of advice. Like being and having a proper rational mindset, and also not just thinking about something but also doing something about it. I think
Yeah.
that's what we can learn from this answer of yours. Thank you so much for that. And with that, sir, it was a lovely session with you, and we are at the end of our segment today. So, sir, like before we part our ways today, so can you just like tell me like what you feel like Grow Junction, or like how much contribution they are doing for the students that we have today?
No, it's a great platform. I think what you are doing to interact with the seasoned professionals, how their career journeys have started, learning from their experiences is something which I'm sure a lot of students will benefit about. Not everything that, let's say, we might have discussed in this 40-minute session, or you might have been interacting with so many other leaders as well, and stating it out might be applicable. But if I'm thinking back like 15 years back, when I was preparing for my B school or preparing for deciding my job careers, we didn't have all these advices or these things in place. So I think the practical insights which the students might get from these sessions, or the folks who might be placed with a challenge, whether want to pursue a career in one thing or not,
Mm.
they'll be able to benefit a lot out of it.
Right.
And for us as well, it's enriching to kind of share our experiences,
Mm.
learn from others as well.
Mm.
So great work by Guru Junction in that space.
I think thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your kind words. And with that, sir, we are at the end of our segment today. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on board with us with this lovely podcast we had. It was extremely insightful, and it was wonderful to like hear your thoughts on everything. Thank you so much, sir.
Same here, man. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye. And with that, guys, it's a wrap. Thank you so much.